fresh out the oven, it's Cinema Bums. I'm Emmett.
And I'm Wade.
Cinema Bums is a podcast where we watch through every single movie in a popular film franchise, one each week, to try and track how the storytelling changes over time. Today, we are continuing our mini-series X23 about Fox's X-Men films. We will fully spoil today's film, but try at all costs not to spoil any future entries in the series, which is more than I can say for the studios. Up right now, it's X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Up right now, we're really stretching the limits of the word popular in the phrase popular film franchise.
Oh, Lord, we are. Today, we're honored to have a special guest.
Ooh.
They're an illustrator, musician, writer, and actor, but they may be best known to our audience as the Burger King product placement officer responsible for entirely funding Steven Spielberg's 2004 film, The Terminal. Please welcome Jay Cobb.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for being here. You're our first ever guest.
Yeah, I already told you this, but this is the second podcast I've ever guested on, so I'm sorry we couldn't be each other's first time.
Okay.
Coming out the gate hot.
It's Jay.
Coming out the gate hot, fellas.
Today we are talking about X-Men, Origins.
No,
Let me stop you there.
The colon comes after Origins, please.
No.
No,
you're wrong.
No. It's X-Men, Origins,
No, it's not.
Wolverine.
I can't believe we've gotten into a semantic argument this early. It is X-Men Origins, Wolverine.
Are you certain?
Yes.
Okay. Are you willing to bet 5 shiny nickels on that?
You've already lost 5 shiny nickels to me today.
Okay.
By telling me that you believed that Hugh Jackman was in The Incredible Hulk.
What?
He's
wasn't?
not.
I know.
All right. Okay, I stand corrected, and I owe you now 10 shiny nickels. But
10 shiny nickels.
here we were talking about X-Men Origins Wolverine. This movie was directed by Gavin Hood, who's a South African director who before this had won the Best Foreign Language Film Oscar for Tsotsi. Went on to direct Ender's Game and Eye in the Sky. It was written by David Benioff, who also wrote The 25th Hour, Troy, The Kite Runner, and goes on to do a little something called Game of Thrones.
He wrote the pilot for Game of Thrones in 2007.
Oh, whoa.
Prior to this, but it wasn't greenlit until 2010. Maybe this is not like a gigantic shock to you guys. I was like astounded that this film was written by David Benioff, because he's like one of the most famous writers in the geek circle, and this is like an infamously bad movie,
right.
And I had never heard them connected to each other. But this movie was actually his idea in 2001.
What the hell?
We'll talk about that more later, but he's like the originator of this film.
That is truly wild, yeah.
Okay, so I guess I'm in the wrong here for not knowing who David Benioff is.
Benioff and Weiss are like the guys who do all of Game of Thrones.
Are they also the ones who wrote Rise of Skywalker?
They are the ones who got hired to do a Star Wars movie and then got fired.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Because they made the last season of Game of Thrones so bad, right? They got fired.
That is part of it. And they made 1,000 million trillion dollars with Netflix. And they said, thanks, we'd rather do this than Star Wars.
And it was also, another writing title on this is Skip Woods, who wrote Swordfish with Jackman and Halle Berry.
Yeah, like in 2002.
And goes on to exclusively do bad action movies Live Free or Die Hard, Hitman, and The A-Team.
I take it
that's the A-Team remake, right, with Liam Neeson?
Yes.
I take issue with you calling the A-Team a bad action movie. It's one of my most viewed movies, probably.
The music was by Harry Gregson Williams, who also did the music for the Metal Gear games.
What?
Jay, can I tell you something?
Yes.
The first 2 films in this franchise were written by David Hayter, the voice of Solid Snake.
Are you
I
serious?
swear to God.
Yeah,
it's real.
Who was Bryan Singer's personal assistant.
Yes, I forgot about that. He was Bryan Singer's, the guy who answers the phone. And he just wrote the script in meetings in secret.
What?
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, you have to listen to
that. Is insane.
So, like, the Metal Gear roots are deep in this franchise.
Yeah.
Wow. The dialogue makes a lot of sense.
This movie was released May 1st, 2009.
What were some of the other movies
Yes.
that were big in 2009 for us to compare?
Here we go. The top 10 highest grossing movies from 2009 are Avatar, a film about colonialism. It is $2.7 billion is how much it grossed.
I did not know who made that.
It leaves the second place in the dust. The second place is Harry Potter 6, which came in at just under $1 billion.
Wow.
Next on the list, we have Ice Age 4, Dawn of the Dinosaurs.
Classic.
Then Transformers. I'm not sure what number this is, but it's called Revenge of the
I
Fallen.
think that's the third one.
I think that's 2.
Is that 2?
1 is 7, I want to say. 07.
Then we have 2012, the classic
the disaster
John Cusack
movie.
film.
Oh, so strange.
It's such a strange movie, and also like very similar to another movie that came out that year or the year before called Knowing, which had the crazy one in it, Nicolas Cage.
Nicolas Cage.
The next on the list is Up.
Oh, wow.
Then we have Twilight Saga: New Moon. Then we have Sherlock Holmes, the Guy Ritchie
Yes.
remake.
God, I love those movies.
Yeah. Then we have Angels and Demons, the second in the series of the Da Vinci Code.
Da Vinci Code.
And we have Ewan McGregor in that film playing a crazy priest who like isn't a part of the
right.
Illuminati and freaking out.
Wait,
and,
was
like,
he part of the Illuminati?
I think he was. He flies a helicopter into a hurricane at the end, and like the god eats him or something.
I thought the whole thing was that he was like the good guy and the evil guy was Vision, right? The actor plays Vision, right?
Oh, Paul Bettany?
Paul Bettany plays like a crazy monk who like whips himself.
No, that's the first.
That's
one.
the first
That's
one.
the first one.
Okay. I have seen both those movies a few times.
They're easy to confuse though. There's just a
Yeah.
lot of like God talk and
It's just a lot of like
torture
Tom
porn.
Hanks and I don't know.
All right. Next up, after that was number 9, and then after that is The Hangover. You will notice that
interesting.
almost all of these, once again, are franchise starters or franchise members, except for Up, but that's part of like the Pixar franchise. So I guess you would call that still. It's like a movie you're going to go see.
Yeah.
It's also a kids movie, and I guess 2012. The great independent film on this list.
Notable indie movie 2012.
Yeah.
Hearing that list kind of makes me go a little easier on this movie.
Right?
Because I was like, oh, everything was horrible then.
Yeah.
Everything this year sucked.
None of those movies except Up are even
say,
close to decent.
Really, the only good movie in that list is like the first like 10 minutes of Up. Truly.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the rest of
all
Up too,
I
but
haven't seen
I
it in a while.
think off of this, probably Sherlock Holmes is the most watchable of these, maybe.
you don't.
You think
besides
more than Up?
I've never seen Up, so I can't really speak to that.
Okay,
I don't
gotcha.
know.
I
doubt Sherlock Holmes holds up.
That's
no,
probably
me
true.
and Chandler, my roommate, watched it a couple of weeks ago, and I think they both hold up
Okay.
very well. I think they're both great still.
I'm glad to hear that.
The action sequences are so good. But anyway,
Now, what may be shocking to you hearing that is that the year before this, in 2008, in the space between when we did X3 last week and this movie this week, 3 movies came out. One of them, a little something called The Dark Knight.
oh, that is around this time.
yeah.
That
Wow.
same summer, the year before this, Iron Man and the Incredible Hulk. The start of the MCU.
Whoa.
Okay.
So
like-
these are the first post-MCU movies we have. Obviously, the impact of the MCU isn't really felt until
Yeah.
Avengers in
Especially-
2012. But
Dude.
yeah.
So you said those two came out after this?
those 3 movies came out the summer before this. A whole year before this.
Yeah.
So like Dark Knight and I feel like Iron Man 2 to an extent are both like considered some of the best superhero movies ever made. So like the fact that
Yeah.
those came out like right before this.
Yeah, compare
How did that not cut this off?
the capability of those movies to this.
It's-
Should have decapitated
nutty.
it. It's wild. Wow.
Yeah, but it always crawls back from the ashes. Okay. So just a little other thing to note about this year in movies. The winner for Best Picture as well as for Best Director, and let me just stress, the only woman director ever to win Oscar for Best Directing. Catherine
Wow.
Bigelow for Hurt Locker. So, Jay, the Oscars, are you down with me for saying they're done?
Oh, burn them down, bro.
Okay,
burn them
sweet.
down. They've ruined everything. You kidding me?
This is the year that the Oscars break.
Okay.
Because what had happened before was,
Uh-huh.
the year before Dark Knight comes out, and it's like generally agreed by everyone at the time to be the best movie of the year. And the Oscars mess it up by not nominating it.
Okay.
They nominate Heath Ledger posthumously for his role as Joker, but they don't nominate the movie for Best Picture, to like widespread backlash. Because of that, they expand it to 10 films. It used to be 5 Best Picture films.
Whoa!
And then they were
5,
like,
wow.
okay, let's make it 10, and then we'll have room for like
Stuff that's not going to win.
more populist stuff, like movies that people actually watch.
Stuff that just like calms people down.
Yeah, which is why like in 2009 you get something like District 9, like a strange film being nominated for Best Picture.
A great movie.
I like that movie. Yeah.
And then they, for the rest of the time until now, spend it like chasing the Dark Knight dollar. Spend it like trying to chase like the interest of the public that they lost back in 2008.
Damn.
Wow. Trying to just regain that credibility. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it, man.
This movie runs a blessed hour and 47 minutes.
This
That's
felt
right.
by far the shortest of all the ones we've watched. To me.
That's
Just
true.
breezed right
It
by.
felt like a friggin' the music video. It had a budget of $150 million.
So much less than the last movie.
Much less than, so about half as much as the last movie?
No, the last was like 250 or something.
Oh,
Okay.
wow. Okay.
The last movie was the most expensive movie ever made at the time that it was made.
Really?
Yeah.
Yep.
So it had a budget of 150. It needed 300 million to break even. It made 373 million. It squeaked by. So Jay, what was your first experience with the X-Men franchise?
So when I was a kid, my uncle gave me this book of like, it's just a collection of like the classic Marvel comics, and it had it had both Vicious Circle, which is the issue of Hulk where Wolverine is introduced for the first time,
Okay.
and also the Hellfire Club comic where Jean Grey is taken like mind controlled or something by them, and Wolverine has to go in and like save everyone by like climbing through the sewers. Honestly, pretty good comic. I like it a lot. I think, I don't know, I haven't read it in a while, but that was I don't remember how long ago that was, but I remember just like reading those like over and over again as a kid. That really is what got me into Marvel as a kid, is those comics. Yeah, so funny. Wolverine looks so different. It's wild. His initial designs are just so crazy. He's just like, I mean, he's still stout, but so that's my first experience with X-Men. And then of course I love the X-Men animated series growing up. And then the Hulk versus animated movies. Some classic cinema. I watched those movies like so many times as a kid.
Is there a Hulk versus Wolverine?
Yeah, there's Hulk versus Thor and Hulk versus Wolverine.
Whoa.
Hulk versus Thor is he goes to Asgard because he's like mind controlled by the Enchantress or something. Hulk versus Wolverine is, I think Weapon X is trying to capture the Hulk. And then Wolverine happens to be in Canada. And so they're like, oh, well, now they're fighting, even though they're trying to defeat the same people, basically, you know. But some classic Deadpool moments in there too.
Wow.
It's honestly a good little animated flick. Yeah.
What was your first experience with the Fox's X-Men movie?
I don't know if I ever had a specific moment as a child where I was like, man, I got to watch Fox X-Men movies. I think it probably was just like I fell asleep Sunday afternoon watching FX or something, and I woke up and X2 was playing. That's probably what happened.
Had you ever seen this movie before?
I have seen clips of this movie because, you know, back in the day, you're like a little middle schooler boy or whatever. You're just like, man, Deadpool is like the best character ever made. So, you know.
Emmett is destroying the studio as we speak.
I love Deadpool. How dare you speak of him that way?
But I mean, no, he is a good character. I think his fans just kind of make him cringy. But back in the day, you know, I'm obsessed with him. And so, like, when I heard what happened to him in X-Men Origins Wolverine, I, of course, watched all the clips, and I was betrayed. I was very upset.
Emmett, had you seen this movie before?
I had.
I'm sorry you had to watch it again.
Yeah. I believe I saw this, like, on my birthday the year it came out. I would have been, like, 14 and thought it was pretty damn cool at the time. I have watched it since then again and had like already reversed my opinion on that. But yeah, it's a stinker. It's bad.
I wouldn't fault your younger self for thinking it was cool, because I mean, we talked about this earlier. Like, there's so many moments in it where it's like, as a young boy, you like imagine yourself doing this cool stuff, like shooting the guards and you're flipping the guns around and you're jumping 30 feet, cutting helicopter blades. Like, it's pretty cool in theory, you know?
Yeah.
There's a reason it's made a better video game than a movie. That's what I've heard.
Listen to all of the other movies that you were watching that year. This was pretty par for the course.
Yeah.
That's true, yeah.
But I will say one disappointing thing about this film. No blue people.
That's true. Mystique never made an appearance.
Never made
That's
an
true.
appearance.
That's a good point. I mean, yeah, Emma Frost, she's white. And yeah, so, I don't know. She's white.
She's white. Emmett's second love, white people. I had seen this movie, I think only once in doing like a rewatch. Like when I was like watching through all of the movies at a time leading up to Apocalypse, I'm pretty sure, was the first and only time prior to this I'd ever seen this movie. This movie, obviously, I guess we can talk about this from the off, along with X3, has like the reputation of one of the worst movies ever. This one is like more the butt of the joke. Like when we were doing X3, there were all those quotes, like serious, somber quotes from people who were all like, I regret doing it.
Right.
So X3 is kind of like the one that like they have to talk about seriously because of how betrayed everyone was.
Right.
And this one is kind of like a meme. That's what the public thinks of it. Let's get into what we think of it. Jay,
Yes.
X-Men Origins, Wolverine, flop or bop?
Dude, absolute flop. Are you kidding me? No way. I'm trying to think of one. There's like maybe, like I'll say there's like 2 moments that are bops.
Okay.
But there's no way that redeems the other, I don't know, we'll say 3 trillion flop moments.
What are the 2 moments?
The 2 moments are anytime Will.i.am says anything.
He's so good.
I'm condensing them all into one moment, and then probably anytime Liev Schreiber does anything with his coat. Those are the only good moments for me.
Okay.
Wait.
Yes, sir.
Wolverine, X-Men, Origins. The story behind the man, behind the team.
The memoir.
The memoir. Flop or bop?
Let me say that this movie is a flop. It's pretty bad, but in the moment you were asking me the question, as I was hearing the question, there was a part of me that was like, oh, it's kind of a bop. Like, this one does, like, it feels like a parody of other action movies because it is done so poorly. Yeah. It, like, comes all the way around to being hilarious.
It's an Ouroboros.
Like, this is, man. I said it felt like the fastest. It's maybe the most watchable of any of the 4 we've seen so far.
Of any of the 4 X movies you watched so far?
I think in quality, it's definitely lower than the first 2. Like, they've totally lost all coherence. I actually think this is the point where, like, I think with this one, the franchise has lost what it's about entirely. Kind of like the touch that separates it from any other superhero movie.
Truly unfocused.
But I do think... No, it's just a flop. Emmett, X-Men Origins Wolverine, flop or bop?
It pains my young adolescent adoration for Hugh Jackman, but this movie is a complete and utter belly flop. It is so bad.
Oh God,
he's not very good in it,
and he's not good in it. Like it's sad to watch. Like so many, I won't say good actors really, other than Hugh Jackman.
Well, your favorite actor is in this, Liev Schreiber.
Yeah.
Oh, is that how you say it, Liev?
I don't know.
I believe it's Liev Schreiber.
I have no idea.
All right, yeah, great.
That's how I've always heard
that's
Emmett talk about it. I want to be clear with the listeners that I've never heard anyone in my entire life other than Emmett talk about Liev Schreiber, and I've heard Emmett talk about him a lot.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, he's solid. He's putting in good work everywhere that he is.
Oh no, I agree. I think he's great.
I think he is maybe the only person who knows what they're doing in this movie.
I think he's a better Sabretooth than Hugh Jackman is Wolverine. But I'll just leave that there for later.
Okay.
I wonder how long he spent learning the run. Like the run crawl.
Yes! Like he because he gets into that.
He's doing the...
He does that.
Is it James McAvoy in Split?
He's
doing that like...
the
run.
Like
the vaulting almost.
Yeah. Oh, if I could rectify my earlier statement, the second moment that redeems this movie is the nude scene.
Oh yeah, that's something we should talk about.
Yeah.
You see Hugh Jackman's buns in this.
You do.
Pretty like a lot. You see them a lot actually. Like a lot more than I expected.
Yeah, you get like quite a few shots of them.
Yeah.
That is something that will go on to kind of define the franchise a little bit. Like, these movies stay PG-13, but they do use nudity and the one F-bomb you can use in a PG-13. We don't get any language like that here.
I will say that actually, that's interesting, because the use of nudity, like, I haven't seen a lot of these movies, so I don't know, but it actually feels pretty in line with, like, the history of X-Men, because a lot of, like, those, I feel like mid-90s X-Men especially, that is some very horny artwork.
Yeah.
Like, there's some human forms in there, like Storm's costume. Come on.
Yeah.
So, like, I feel like the use of nudity is pretty on brand for X-Men, and I'm honestly, wow, look at them go.
Yeah,
Happy for them.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit less... I would say the full nudity here is less gratuitous than all of, like, the leering camera angles we've gotten
That's
in the
true.
last three movies.
And I mean, it helps that
Storm
there
and
are.
Mystique.
It does help that there are no women in this movie except for the one.
Yeah, this movie has really galaxy-brained the Bechdel test. They've learned that there's only one female character. You can't fail the Bechdel test because there are no other females for her to talk to.
no power here, Bechdel test.
So the series ends with X3, a pretty definitive end. Like, they have not really left themselves much room to go forward. And so instead they go back in time to do the origin of Wolverine.
Right.
Are there any good prequels?
I know me and you disagree on this way, but I do like Temple of Doom. It is technically a prequel.
Oh, that is interesting. It is a prequel.
I mean, only technically, because it happens, like, what, 3 or 4 years before Raiders?
It happens, like, 1 year before Raiders.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it does the prequel thing of, like, introducing characters that you know are going to be gone and, like, lining up what happens to them and how it takes the character on the arc to be the character you know.
Yeah.
So,
besides
like,
Star Wars prequels.
what
obviously.
makes it hard to pull off a prequel?
I feel like maybe, well, because if, you know, especially, like, if you're dropping a movie that's, I mean, at least meant to be standalone, or at most meant to have sequels, you spend so much time introducing the character, and then it's like, okay, so we know the character, and then you have to go back in time and kind of reintroduce them in ways that, like, I don't know. You know, I mean, it's just like, we have to relearn the character now because we learned him at this certain point, but we also know him already.
Yeah.
Or her, or them, I mean, but, I don't know, it's just like, it is tough because... And also, you got to throw a little fan service in there. It's like, that's why I'm here, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, you watch Star Wars because, I mean, like, Obi-Wan does all that stuff, you know? But, I don't know, dude.
It feels like that's maybe the most exciting stuff in a prequel, is just seeing, like, what's going to line up with the status quo that you know.
Yeah.
We certainly do get a lot of that in this at the very end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The jacket in particular.
Well, not even with Wolverine, but just in that we
just
get
like,
all of the
all
other, like, young X-Men who get saved by
Yeah.
Professor X.
Yeah, it's also tough. I mean, that makes a lot of sense, too, because, I mean, if your main job with the prequel is to end somewhere, then it kind of feels hard to get a lot of that, like, kind of, like, good substance.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
And also, there's like, I mean, I know this is kind of always an issue whenever you have Wolverine of like, oh, he probably is not going to die because his entire like power revolves around being invincible. But
Right, and also,
but like, you know, the character isn't like the main character in a prequel. If it's a character you know from the like, presumably it's like a character prequel, then you know they're going to like whatever obstacles they face, they're gonna come out pretty much okay.
Right,
because they wind up being the character you know.
Yeah, so you're like, you know they're going to survive, and then it's Wolverine, so you especially know he's going to survive.
Yeah, exactly.
This one is maybe a little more apt, though, because we know that Wolverine doesn't have memories.
Right.
And then he does remember things at this. So that's kind of like the shadow hanging over this movie, is like, how is he going to lose his memories?
And how does he lose his memories, Wade? You care to talk about that from the film?
He loses his memories because he gets shot several times with adamantium bullets.
Right.
By Danny Huston, who in 24 years grows up to look like Brian Cox. I'm sorry, but I'm not buying it.
It's
Can
very
we actually
strange.
go back to the start of this movie
Yeah,
and walk through this a little bit?
please.
You've got Troye Sivan
Oh yeah,
Right.
playing
Troye
a young
Sivan.
Wolverine.
I screamed when you told me that.
I was so
was-
excited. He
Jesus.
has like the action shot too, where he's like screaming into the rain like Wolverine.
Yeah.
Who is like a sick young boy in, I don't know,
Canada.
Canada.
1845.
What time?
1845. is the year.
1845.
Which is not accurate to the comics, but we're not going to pass over that.
And there's some Pride and Prejudice drama going on.
Oh yeah, it's some melodrama.
Yeah.
They're all ending their statements with "Sir." Felt very Wuthering Heights.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's one of my favorite parts of the movie.
This whole film is kind of a melodrama.
Truly,
The tone of
yeah.
it is like wildly different from the tone of the last three movies.
Mm.
And I know that the last movie is different than the first two, but like
I feel
Yeah.
like the first three are trying to be serious comic book movies.
Yeah.
And this one is trying to be a balls to the wall action movie.
It's trying to be a balls to the wall action movie, but at the same time make Wolverine like the most tragic character
Yeah,
possible.
exactly.
Which I don't think has ever worked for him. I feel like
Yeah.
like he's definitely a tragic character, but I mean I don't think leaning into that part of his personality has ever garnered any success ever. It's just like him just being like, well, I don't care, I'm gonna go kill some people, you know, like that's his whole deal.
also we know whatever horrible things happen to him that he's going to forget them. So it's not like he's haunted by the memories of the things that happened to him in this movie.
Yeah, literally the only memories he's ever haunted by in the original trilogy are the memories of the procedure itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He doesn't have any like previous amnesia.
And also like it's the movie is so him focused that like any prequel like potential stuff we could get out of the other characters like it just doesn't like why we don't get anything from it.
And also,
there's no interesting drama out of like these other characters that we see, you know.
especially because the next time you see Sabretooth, if you're watching this in like chronological order, he gets just thrown off the roof of the Statue of Liberty and he's done.
Yeah, this movie really has the Star Wars Episode 3, Episode 4 problem, where they have like built up so much the epicness of the duel between these two characters locked in eternal combat, and then the next time you see them for their final duel, Sabretooth like hits the hood of his car and is done in 1 minute, and Wolverine has no idea who he is.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's
interesting.
that kind of screws that whole thing up.
Emmett, does this movie answer any questions you had after the last three movies?
About Wolverine?
Any questions? Because it does, X2 spends a lot of time teasing Wolverine's backstory. It has the stuff with William Stryker, who is also in this movie, who's not from the comics.
I mean, like, it answers the question of specifically just, like, what did it look like when Wolverine got shot up with adamantium?
Yeah.
I mean, if you... And I'm sure, like, in my 14-year-old brain, I was like, oh, yeah, I needed to know exactly what that looked like.
Yeah.
But on thinking back on it, it's much creepier. Like, all the hints that you get of it in X2 is much more body horror and frightening than the much more graphic thing that you get in this movie, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's pretty consistent with what you see in X2, but I think it's pretty scary here.
Gambit is not in X1, right?
No, this is the first time we see Gambit.
So that really, that answers the question I was asking when watching X1, which is, was Gambit ever in this universe? That was the only question I ever had watching that movie. So, there you go.
Okay.
Should we go ahead and talk about Gambit now?
Yeah, let's do
I
it.
just wish it was Channing Tatum, man.
Yeah, Channing Tatum, after this, for like a decade, will try to get a Gambit movie made.
too
And
bad.
it never happens.
He really...
It's too bad.
Give him one.
Give it to him.
Give it to him.
I mean, we saw what happened with Ryan Reynolds and Deadpool. I mean, despite your feelings on the Deadpool movies, you know, they were successful.
Yeah, okay, so hold that thought. We'll talk about
Okay,
Deadpool in a
heard,
moment.
heard.
Gambit is in this. He's played by Taylor Kitsch, who is a guy that Hollywood kept trying to make happen. They kind of had a run with him that was similar to, I feel like, what happened with Jai Courtney a few years ago, where they were like, we know no one likes this guy, but here he is as the lead in 15 action movies, and we
Yeah.
hope you like him. He is also 3 years away, along with the one female in this movie, from being the leads of John Carter.
Damn.
Another famous flop.
Whoa!
Mm-hmm. He's John
Oh
Carter
my
of
God.
Mars. Taylor Kitsch.
And the female lead in this is in that too. The
Yeah,
princess?
Lynn Collins is the female lead.
And that was 3 years after this.
Who's playing Silver Fox? Yeah, it was 2012.
Is that
Wow.
wait? She's playing a character that has a name.
In this film, I didn't know until she dies that her name was Kayla,
yeah.
in this movie,
Okay.
because then Wolverine screams it. I had not heard it prior to that. And I didn't know until reading the credits that her name was Kayla Silver Fox, meaning she was the mutant Silver Fox from the comics. Jay, what's your take on the Gambit issue here? Do you like him?
Oh man. Well, I like him because Will.i.am likes him. The first thing we hear Will.i.am say when he sees him is, "That's cool." And frankly, that really did instill a lot of confidence in me about the character. I mean, I think despite the scripts and perhaps Taylor Kitsch, that's his name?
Yeah, Taylor Kitsch.
Taylor Kitsch's best efforts, I think he is charming to an
Okay.
extent. But to an extent, like a little bit, like he's got a little bit. But I mean, it's just like the way they use him is so weird, and his powers are so ambiguous in this. It's like so hard to track like what is going on.
Parkour.
Parkour, stabbing his poles into a wall to climb it.
Good with cards.
Good
Cool.
with planes.
Magic.
And there's that part where Wolverine knocks him unconscious, and then 10 seconds later we see him jump off a rooftop and slam his staff into the ground. So I guess his other power could be teleporting, ostensibly. I don't know.
No, there's already one person with that ability in this movie. There can't be more than
Right.
one with the same ability in the same film.
Yeah, let's run through the crew at the beginning. 'Cause
Yeah,
this
yeah,
was
yeah.
shocking to me.
Okay, yeah, let's do it.
So, Wolverine starts as part of this mutant strike force.
That were recruited presumably out of the war criminals of Vietnam.
Yeah, this movie starts. Can we really talk about
Yeah,
this?
yeah.
Okay, so we get the Pride and Prejudice drama at the beginning. Then we get, for the first time, not a DNA opening credits
Oh,
sequence.
it's so cool.
A so much better opening
Yes.
credit sequence of Wolverine and Sabretooth fighting together over the years because they're half brothers.
Right.
Which ends with Sabretooth raping a woman in Vietnam.
And the other soldiers trying to stop him, unrealistic, and then Wolverine trying to stop them from stopping him, and they kill a bunch of guys,
Yeah.
and then
And
I
then
only
they're
think
killed.
they're killed.
Yeah.
And they say it tickled.
That's the thing. So the thing about that montage is it's like honestly pretty cool for
Yeah.
the most part. I mean, like, obviously views on war notwithstanding, it's like, wow, like these guys really have been through it all. Wow, cool. Look at their relationship.
Yeah.
And then like, yeah, it's like it ends and like with the scene from I think it's Apocalypse Now, with him just like shooting the gun out the window, just like get some, ha ha ha, and just like no, stop it. And then he commandeers the helicopter.
Oh, yeah,
and
he's
it's so
like-
weird.
I guess a big mutant ability is like randomly being able to fly really high powered
Yes.
equipment.
Yeah, because Gambit does that later too.
Yeah. And Zero.
That's right.
He's flying a helicopter too.
This movie loves helicopters.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if we've seen any helicopters before.
I'm realizing now why they were still using the Vietnam War era helicopter later, because they got it for the first part,
Right.
And they couldn't afford another one.
They had one on
Using the
lease.
UH-1 still, man.
So then he becomes part of this team.
Mm-hmm.
It's him, Sabretooth, whose power is having long fingernails.
And also healing a little bit, but not as much.
Honestly,
maybe.
queer icon.
Then you've got Agent Zero, who is like good with guns.
Yeah.
Aren't we all? And he can jump really high.
You can jump backwards.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Who else is there? You've got Dominic Monaghan
That's
as a man who can like control electronics with his mind.
Yeah.
So we see him like operate the elevator and then like turn on some light bulbs
Yeah.
later.
He's like, I don't know. He must have a really great personality because
I have to be honest with you. I had completely forgotten Dominic Monaghan was in this movie until you just mentioned it.
He's very soft spoken. He has a tender presence. In
I mean,
this movie.
I said this earlier. I honestly believe it. This is some of the most sensitive acting I've ever seen Dominic Monaghan ever do.
Then you've got, I would say, the only person who understands the tone of the movie, Will.i.am
Yes.
of the Black Eyed Peas.
Goat.
Who
God,
can
so
teleport.
good.
Yeah.
I want to say this whole wave of everyone applauding Lil Nas X as the first black cowboy 2 years ago. You've got him right here, baby. Will.i.am as a black cowboy. He's got the hat.
Yeah.
He's teleporting.
He's got an accent, kind of.
Yeah.
I gotta say, the effect they used to do his teleporting, I actually thought was really cool.
Oh, with like how it left his skeleton behind.
Yeah, like the skeleton kind of like can't like skeleton to flesh kind of how like as opposed to like Nightcrawler's like mist.
Yeah.
Which I think is used very effectively in that White House scene, for example.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that he teleports, I was like, that's a really cool effect actually. And then it's obviously used later when what's his name grabs his spine. So I was like, wow, that's just like some cool like in-world.
Yeah, best
like,
character.
That's a cool moment. I was like, that was a really cool moment. He just grabbed his spine and like, I mean, it was brutal, but
yeah,
it's cool. Yeah,
I do like that is one of the parts of this movie that I had remembered before watching it. Of like, oh yeah, there's the part where he kills the guy by ripping his spine out, like as he's teleporting. Just,
and then the last member of the team is Ryan Reynolds as Wade Wilson, Deadpool. Ryan Reynolds had been trying to get a Deadpool movie set up in 2003 at New Line Cinema with David S. Goyer, the writer of The Dark Knight. And then it fell through because of Blade Trinity. They like had to put all their efforts into Blade Trinity. So it fell through, and then I guess he's just like super passionate about this character and wanted to play him here. His take on it in like the 5 minutes we see at the beginning is closer to the Deadpool we get later in the series than I remembered.
Yeah, for sure. Just like snarky, kind of charming, doesn't stop talking.
Yeah.
It's all right there.
I also, you're forgetting one of the members of the team, the guy who will later become the Blob.
I was about to mention that. Yeah.
Kevin Durand.
Yeah.
Whose power before being the Blob is
strength
or
and
strong.
Kind of like, I don't know. His whole move, his one move he does twice is that he just puts his fist in the barrel of a tank, and when they fire, the bullet explodes, destroying the tank.
Oh, that might be a Blob ability of like absorbing power,
maybe
of like the Hulk,
kind of like that. The Sebastian Shaw thing.
Yeah,
the kinetic energy thing.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Yes, and then later when we see him, he, because of stress from his war crimes, has guilt eaten so much that he's become the Blob.
It's weird and horrifying.
Which
and
we do get an origin story for the name.
Yeah.
Which was great. Wolverine goes, I'm trying to talk to you, bub, or something. And he goes, did you just call me the Blob? And then they fight. So that was great. That was really good. I liked that a lot.
The effect on him is pretty good. It's truly disgusting.
It's disconcerting, but effective. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, that's the Blob.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty good. Yeah.
He a little known fact is Kevin Durand is a follower of the Christian Bale School of Acting, so he actually put on all of that weight.
Something we have to talk about, and
okay.
I'm sorry for jumping across so much this episode.
Yeah.
But this is truly what this movie does too.
Mm-hmm.
For the first hour of this movie, everyone calls Wolverine Jimmy.
Yes.
Because that's what his wife calls him. That's what his brother calls him. That's what his dad calls him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Then...
And importantly, while he's on the special team, that's what people call him.
Right.
Yes. Like, at the top of the third act, Stryker calls him Logan inexplicably, and then his wife calls him Logan, but there's never any explanation of it.
And his dog tag says Logan, too.
Yes, his dog tag suddenly says Logan.
Now, I can kind of get you the workaround on this.
Okay.
But it's tough. It's not ever stated out loud in this movie, I don't think. But the name of the groundskeeper who says like, Jimmy, I am your father at the very beginning. His
son.
His name is
I am your father.
His name is Thomas Logan.
Yeah.
His last name is Logan. And Jimmy, Wolverine's half-brother's name is Victor Logan. So there's a chance...
But later...
There's a chance that he changed his last name from Howlett to Logan when he was running along with with
Maybe.
Liev Schreiber, and eventually Stryker was like, screw it, I'll just call him by his last name.
Yeah.
And then when he hears it, he thinks it's his first name.
Although, didn't I see too that?
I mean, that is the galaxy brain workaround for what the hell's going on. I mean,
show
I'm
don't
not
tell,
saying that's
you know,
clear
like-
at any point in this movie that's what happened, but I think that's what they think happened.
But because I thought I saw earlier on that because we watched it on Amazon and they have the little pop-up thing where it shows the character names and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't Sabretooth's name Victor Creed?
Oh, he calls him Victor Creed in this movie.
So like,
Does he do that too?
He says his full name at some point.
so like, what is?
Oh, Jesus Christ!
Everyone's just changing their last names and no one is discussing it at all.
No, they didn't even go to a notary public. They were just we're doing
dude.
We're doing that.
He's like, I'm immortal. I'll change my name.
Please write us at cinemabumspod@gmail.com if you have any idea of how this Jimmy Logan switch happens.
Yeah, for real, it is baffling. Also, for a lot of the early part of this movie, Wolverine is doing a Christian Bale impersonation from Dark Knight, or at least from Batman Begins. He's doing like the "Where is she? Where is she?" He's like making his voice hoarse. But that could also be the fact that, as you said, he's not drinking any water on the entire production of this movie.
Yes, dude. You look at Wolverine's body in this movie. It is so sinewy. It is so veiny. You can see every strand of muscle. This man must have drank an ounce of water a day. And then imagine all the stuff he's doing too. Like, he's sweating it out, man. Like, he must have had a bad headache. I sympathize.
I read that Liev Schreiber put on 40 pounds to play this part.
Good God.
Why? He doesn't even he's take wearing off a his shirt. trench coat
He's
the
wearing a
whole
trench
movie.
coat.
This movie just demands so much out of people, audience, and actors alike.
Demands so much in return for so little.
Exactly. There's so little that bounces back. Okay, so I have some cultural context for you.
Please.
And that is only in regards to the 3 Mile Island incident, which this movie ends with. The 3 Mile Island incident was a nuclear incident that happened in 1979. That's how we know what year it is in the latter half of this movie. It's just like dated off the 3 Mile Island incident. I don't think it ever says this in the subtitle.
I was going to say
that it happened in 1979.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time trying to figure out.
Do they even ever say 3 Mile Island in the movie?
Yes, they do. They call it the island, but then when you get there, they're like, oh, he was throwing it on 3 Mile Island. It's a nuclear base.
Jay and I were sitting there just watching it happily, and then Emmett yells, the 3 Mile Island. As though, and to me, he could have said, Thousand Island Ranch. I had no idea what on earth he was talking about, but he had so much recognition for what was going on. So what is it?
So the deal is, in 1979, there was basically this meltdown. Things got overpressured because of computer and human interface error, which basically means the scientists didn't know how to read the computers, and we probably shouldn't laugh about it because it was probably pretty upsetting at the time. But that was the official story.
Sure.
What turns out actually happened is that Wolverine cut off Deadpool's head while he had Cyclops' eyes implanted in him, and he sliced the entire reactor in half. That's what actually happened. That's the real story.
Yeah, in a perfect spiral. And he didn't even cut the reactor. He just cut a smokestack.
That's true.
So, wow. How interesting.
Cyclops is better in this than he is in either of the 3 past movies.
Yeah, he's doing more.
This has always been my top 2 frustrations with the X-Men series. But the guy that they cast as Cyclops, and maybe it's just the writing, I think is atrocious. So bad. Because, I mean, I read the X-Men versus Avengers comics, and I like them. They're cool. But the thing is Cyclops is a total badass in those. He's tough as nails, gets what he wants, doesn't let anyone get in his way, and then he gets the Phoenix Force and then becomes this all-powerful being and blah, 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 blah.
Well,
in the movies, I feel like he's just no, don't take my goggles off, no! It's just really, I'm just man, you ruined that character. He's one of my favorite comic characters, honestly, Cyclops.
You were telling us something about him while we were watching it, about where his power comes from. Can you speak to that for a second?
Yes, so Cyclops' actual power is that his eyes are portals to an energy dimension. So whenever he opens them, the portals, they create little openings in this energy dimension, and energy just escapes like a little vacuum, like in a spaceship. So he's just shooting energy out of this dimension. I believe it's because his father is an alien.
Yeah, so it's not heat, which I did know. I knew it was like some sort of dimensional force.
Right,
Yeah.
but it's...
Not like fire.
Which, in this movie, they don't seem to make too much of a distinction on that. Okay, so Wade, can you give us some of the behind-the-scenes drama?
Yeah, so David Benioff, who I just want to reiterate, is absolutely wild that he's connected to this. Like, one of the most popular, as in well-known, geeks on Earth.
Yeah.
Back in 2001, right after the first movie came out, started approaching Fox about wanting to do a solo Wolverine Origins movie. His inspirations for it were Chris Claremont and Frank Miller's 1982 Wolverine limited series, which I'm sure was gritty and dark and horrible.
Yeah, that's Frank Miller.
Barry Windsor Smith's 1991 Weapon X story.
Okay.
And Bill Gemma, Paul Jenkin, and Joe Quesada's 2001 Origin miniseries.
I've been reading that one today. It is mostly just that first Elizabethan part of it. I think you'd actually really like it, Jay. It's,
Oh, yeah.
It's mostly just like how he becomes Wolverine in the old days.
So Benioff, at the same time that he is publishing his novel, The 25th Hour, is trying to get Fox to do it. They don't bite. In 2004, they hire him. So right after X2, which is around the same time that he is adapting that same novel for Spike Lee, which is one of his first screenwriting credits, 25th Hour. This movie actually started production in that sense before The Last Stand, as we talked about last week. Benioff's draft, he said, was darker and more brutal. It was an R-rated take on the character. He wanted Gambit and Deadpool. He finished his draft in 2006, and then Fox hired Skip Woods, who had worked on Hitman for them, to do his new draft. Fox wanted to do 2 origin movies, which is why this is like the start of a new series, X-Men Origins. They wanted to do a Wolverine prequel and a Magneto prequel.
Whoa.
And that one like languished in development hell for long enough that whatever work they had done on it got folded into First Class, which we'll talk about more next week. So this movie, the first choice for director, as with last week, was Zack Snyder, who turned it down. He was off doing Watchmen.
This is the rare example where I'll say I think Zack Snyder would have made something better.
Yeah, at least like the spectacle stuff in this would be more convincing.
Exactly.
If it was Snyder behind the lens. It would probably have the same depth, but
Oh, absolutely.
it would look better. I mean, Watchmen, I think, is the same year and looks better than this.
Oh, yeah.
Or around this time
Yeah,
period,
yeah.
at least.
For sure.
So they bring on Gavin Hood, who I want to talk about for a minute. He, as we mentioned before this had won an Oscar for the best foreign language film in Tatsi. He's a South African filmmaker and an auteur before this, and he like gets wrangled into doing this thing. Jackman liked Tatsi and he thought Wolverine was similar to the main character in that it's kind of like a crime film. Gavin Hood's main take, well, he had 2 things. He made the choice to have Sabretooth and Wolverine be brothers, which they're not in the comics. Is
Not
that
in the
correct?
comics, that's correct.
I didn't know that.
So the kid in the comics is just like another guy he has, like, he
they're
does
just, like,
have a
buds.
brother that he has beef with and like has a major arc with, but it's not Sabretooth.
Interesting.
And he and Sabretooth just have separate beef.
Yeah, and that is how it was in the original script too. But he wanted them to be brothers to make it kind of textual. His big take on the character was that he was struggling between being an animal and being a human.
Yeah.
Which I'm not sure how much we've seen of at all from Wolverine in the past 3 movies. There are references made to that in this movie
Some.
that seem a little out of place because I'm not sure if we ever see that
Yeah.
actual struggle depicted.
Right. I mean, that's like those parts where they're like, you know, the classic him and Sabretooth running at each other.
Yeah.
And they're both like snarling and whatever. And
Oh,
there's like that
sure.
one. I mean, there's a few parts where he's just, I mean, like the parts you're referencing where he's just like, I have to be what I am. You know,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's the animal. And then he's like, the Wolverine. But I mean, like, I don't know. There's a lot of snarling. That's pretty much all the characterization we get of that particular conflict, yeah.
Hood also wanted the tone to be darker. His pitch for it was that it was about Wolverine struggling with PTSD about his time in the army. And Fox was like,
which we only saw once in this movie.
no, we want it to be light. And it got like so bad that in the middle of filming, Fox was like about to fire him. They had, it doesn't say who they are, but they had 2 directors that they had already called. And they were like, hey, you might get the call tomorrow to go and direct X-Men Origins Wolverine. Because we like hate how much this guy's trying to make it into a serious movie.
Wow.
And Richard Donner, producer, director of Superman, we've talked about him in all of these episodes now, flew to the set and mediated between the 2 of them to get to like how to find some middle ground on the disparity between the tonal shifts, which almost shut this movie down.
Honestly, that makes so much sense. Like watching this movie, like this tonal battle, because there's clear tonal battles going on during this movie.
Yeah. It makes the setup of this movie, too. Like, that it's a melodrama and that it ends in Vietnam war crimes.
Yeah.
And then, like, people trying to move away from that
And there's
live.
also Will.i.am. It's just, wow, there's a lot going on.
While they were filming this, the version of the script they were shooting was also unfinished. They would get the new scenes sent to them from LA while they were filming in Australia at night and then shoot the scenes the next day.
Wow.
This was also coming off the back of the writers' strike, the Writers Guild of America strike that had happened the year before. So
Solidarity.
I don't know how Skip Woods fits into that, but he was apparently the guy who was sending them the scenes literally the night before they were filming them.
Damn.
Which I think also explains some things.
Wow, yeah.
Wow. I mean, I'm not saying he's a scab, but most experts would say don't pick him.
On March 31st, 2009, this entire movie leaked online.
What?
2 months before it came out.
That's probably... Wow. No wonder I saw so much on YouTube.
How? This is the answer that Fox themselves gave. I know this is going to sound strange and unconvincing. This is the direct answer as much as we know it.
Okay.
It was uploaded to the internet by a man from the Bronx who bought it on a DVD from a man from Korea.
That's the official response?
That is the official studio line on what happened here. The studio also said...
Okay, but how did the so-called man from Korea get the DVD?
Thank you, Fox? Like, what? How do I meet this guy from Korea? Like,
executive Fox also said that this movie was downloaded by a minimum of 15 million people before it was even released.
wow, dude.
There was some like sound and visual effects that were unfinished.
Okay.
Well, they're still in the movie, I think.
Yeah. We also have to talk about how Wolverine's claws in this look hand animated.
Yes.
They are so bad. It looks like Who's Framing Roger Rabbit.
Yeah.
Oh, he does.
It's really strange.
Oh, man.
Also embroiled in this controversy was Roger Friedman, the film critic from Fox News, who of course has the same parent company as Fox the studio, who was fired for writing a film review of the leaked copy and describing in his review how easy it was to find the leak.
Oh my god.
Although it does note here that it was a very positive review. In the actual movie, as it exists now, there is a mid-credit scene, which I don't even remember what it was.
It's Stryker.
Oh, it's that they're coming to arrest Stryker. Or something. And then there's a post-credit scene, which is Deadpool starting to reassemble itself.
But this time with a mouth.
But there is also another post-credit scene that they filmed.
Oh.
And different screenings show different ones. And this was in an attempt to have some reason for people to come and see this movie in theaters when it was released, because everyone had already seen it. But the other post-credit scene, this is pretty shocking to me, is Wolverine in Japan.
Whoa.
He's at a bar in Japan. Someone comes and asks him, like, are you drinking to forget? And he says, no, I'm drinking to try to remember.
There's that melodrama again.
Wow.
Yeah, for real. But that implies to me more setup than I suspected for a later film in this franchise that will take place in Japan. But that exchange suggests to me that he went to Japan sometime between this movie and the original X-Men.
Oh.
In which case, it was not
A
knowing setup.
Yeah.
Pretty
Maybe
interesting.
he just likes Japan. He just goes there a lot.
Oh yeah, no, that's like a thing in the comics. He's
Yeah.
like a total, and he had like he had a wife there too.
You got
And
wives
Silver
all over the place.
Silver
Yeah.
Samurai is like one of his like, baddies.
Oh, yeah.
This movie was a financial success, although it underperformed Fox's set expectations for it, which has been attributed possibly to the leak or possibly to the swine flu, which was majorly affecting several movie-going countries at the time this movie was released.
Wow.
Topical.
It got mixed to negative reviews from critics. It has a 40 on Metacritic. Hugh Jackman himself was not particularly happy with this movie. He eventually said that he wanted a movie that was focused just on Wolverine, but, quote, somehow the first Wolverine movie ended up looking like the fourth X-Men, just with different characters. There was also a video game tie-in to this movie that was made by Raven Software, which supposedly is very good.
Yeah.
It included Mystique and the Sentinels, adding them into this plot line.
Oh.
It was also rated M,
Whoa.
which is the video game equivalent of R, for strong language and graphic violence. So it's interesting that like the original pitch for this movie by Benioff was like a hard rated R Wolverine movie, and Fox wouldn't let them do it, but the video game did get to do a hard R Wolverine.
Yeah. It's probably like they just like made Wolverine. They saw how like all the infighting ruined everything, and they're like, man, well, that sucks. And then the guys are like, hey, can we make it M? And they're like, honestly, go for it, dude. Like, let's try to milk as much money out of this property as we can at this point. Like,
There
yeah.
are also scenes in this movie that certainly look like they are from the video game.
Yes.
Such as one where Wolverine is dealing with a ladder,
It's like a fire escape that
Yeah.
Gambit's trying to escape up.
and he's like hitting the rings one by one, clawing them away with his claws as they fall.
It is truly impossible to describe this scene to you if you have never seen this movie. If you've never seen this movie, it is impossible to accurately tell you what it looks like, what it feels like, what it sounds like.
Or how just like how long it goes
How
for.
long it is.
Like, that's the most ridiculous part.
Like, you just watch it, like, it's just like, I can sit here for 3 hours and try to go as in-depth with you as possible. But you are not going to understand what is going on until you watch it.
This is the only movie in this entire franchise I would recommend people watch. Because you need to understand what it's like.
It is indescribable.
It is
Uncontainable.
It will melt your brain. Well, I didn't mean to segue from that
The
into
closest
this,
to
but
like
you might as
Eldritch
well.
horror as we can get.
There were two separate, unrelated incidents after this movie of children injecting mercury into their body to try and become Wolverine.
Interesting.
That's
The
all I
old,
have
the
to
old
say.
Quicksilver routine, I see. This is a little play on words. But, wow. You said two?
Yeah, two separate, unrelated incidents
Two
of kids
separate-
doing this.
Wow.
You know that if that happened, like if that happened,
Did they die?
I don't know. I hope not.
I hope not too.
yeah, I hope not. If that happened today, though, I feel like it would be several hundred at least would have done it.
These Gen Zers and
Maybe.
their Wolverine
I
movies.
I honestly do think that it just like would have become a sensation, and everybody would have been like, "Yeah, we should probably do that."
Yeah.
These X-Men movies are like all in on kids in cages. There are like human-sized cages everywhere in this world. Because
Yeah.
it seems like for 3 movies in a row, the villain's plan is like, we're going to capture them and we're going to stick them in a cage.
And then we'll just leave them there.
That's it. That's the whole plan.
Yeah,
Until we release them for whatever reason, yeah.
it's
We
just
found
Alright.
out that Lynn Collins, who plays Jimmy's wife in this, is a Juilliard grad.
yeah.
Meaning that she went to Juilliard for 4 years to then be relegated to just wearing 6 different nightwear pieces of lingerie in this movie.
Oh my
And then
God.
in the last scene, just wearing a really bad Renaissance Fair cosplay.
And get this, she dies twice in this movie. We get the iconic
That is
Hugh
true.
Jackman holding his dead love
Twice.
in this movie. Okay, so we're going to talk about the continuity real quick.
This is a new segment.
New
we're
segment
debuting
we're doing.
this week.
Whoa.
called- You want to?
Please,
Okay. Continuity Corner.
Oh,
is our new segment.
Okay.
let's step into the continuity corner.
Get into the corner.
So this movie is a prequel. It's the first movie where the possibility of screwing up the continuity occurs.
Yes.
This movie takes place in 1979 for the most, like, the end of it. We've got a Charles Xavier. He can walk. He has powers. He has no hair. Notedly, in 2000, he is in a wheelchair.
Yes.
He doesn't have hair and he has powers. And in the 1986 flashback that I think we get in, it's 86 or maybe 87 if it's in the near distant future, we've got him visiting Jean Grey. He can walk.
Yeah,
and
he looks the same as he does in
and
this
he looks
movie.
the same. And he is tight with Magneto still at that point in 86. And that's what we're tracking right now. The Wolverine stuff is weird because all this stuff happens to him and then he loses his memory. So that tracks.
And then he spends 21 years cage fighting and drinking in a bar in Canada?
I mean, wouldn't you?
We've all been there.
Okay. I'm glad that Professor X doesn't interact with Wolverine in this, because I feel like it would be like a step too far if he had really known him and dealt with him and then acted like he didn't know him later.
So that presents an interesting question for me, though, because at the end of the movie, Professor X just kind of appears. I feel like there's never a point where, anyone's like, oh, well, I know a guy that might be able to help you with these mutants.
Yeah.
Well, you know how he gets there.
Helicopter,
Baby!
And guess who was flying it? Probably just him.
Notable mutant, yes.
He loves helicopters. This movie loves helicopters.
Yeah, but notably, they couldn't afford to get another one, so they animated it. Because they didn't want to use the old Huey again.
No, they didn't. Do you want to talk about your favorite scene in this before we skip over?
Yes! Yeah? We're watching it. It's him fighting Agent Zero, and he's on a motorcycle v helicopter, the classic matchup, right? Of course.
Yeah, the bitter enemies.
Tom Cruise, I'm sure, has done that matchup plenty of times.
Yeah.
And we're watching it, and I said, man, I hope Wolverine slices those rotors off with his claws. And 10 seconds later, boom, slices them off. And then, what did you say, Wade?
I said, Wolverine 1, Agent 0.
Oh, God. Oh, and then there's that scene where he's walking away
Uh-huh.
after talking to Agent Zero. He's like, why? Why did you do this? Or whatever. And as Wolverine is walking away, you can clearly see Agent Zero in the background still. His face is on screen. It's blurry, but you can still see his face. And he says something. I can't remember what he said. It was like, oh, people around you keep dying or something like that.
He said, why didn't you hug your wife in front of all those dudes at the construction corner?
Yeah. But he's like, people who meet you keep dying or something. But notably, the actor's mouth does not move.
To which Ryan Reynolds at the end of this movie.
Yes. So that must be Agent Zero's other power, is speaking without moving his mouth, ventriloquy.
Okay.
It's probably. So in response to that, Wolverine takes his claws, his animated claws, and sparks with a rock on the ground and lights this perfect line of oil right to it. Massive explosion. You know what? Wolverine doesn't turn around, baby. He keeps walking. And I got to credit him for that. I got to give it to him. You know what I mean?
That was the exact moment where this movie went from hot garbage to instant classic in my eyes.
And it's just like, when you say like, it's like satirizing action movies, it is just like so clear in that instance. Because it's just like all the visual cues are there. The music swells. It's just like, it's action movies condensed into one scene. It's just like, bro.
No, truly.
He didn't have sunglasses on, which is the only other thing he's missing. But
I mean, do you think the problem with Hugh Jackman in this is that he's playing it too seriously?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That he's just like going for it?
Yeah. And it's not even like a good serious either.
How do we feel about his monologue towards the end of this?
It was real for me.
Oh, I forgot about that.
I'm just the fool who got played.
That's right.
So Wolverine is definitely the protagonist of this movie.
Sure.
Yes.
That work is done for us
That
when
work.
movies have the character's name as the title. What does he want?
What does Wolverine want? So, wow, interesting question, Wade. Thank you for asking. So let's see. Let's start from the beginning. What is Wolverine doing? He's rejected by his father and runs away from his mother because I know he's going to be alienated because they found out he's a mutant.
Yeah.
So I guess the only thing he really wants is to like find. Well, no. I was gonna say find like a place to be accepted, but I don't think that's ever really made clear. I guess it's like just to like the younger Sabretooth says, you can't trust nobody. You gotta be hard and fend for yourself. You know, except he's a kid, so fend for yourself. So I guess like that's what he wants, is to just fend for himself. Which for some reason involves him fighting in every war in U.S. history.
Yeah, I mean, if you're trying to survive, maybe avoiding wars with your healing powers would be a better use of time.
Exactly. But I guess the best I can glean from his motivation is just to always be around Liev Schreiber, which is part of my main motivation too in life. And it's hard for me to do that, obviously. That's really all I can glean from that, yeah.
I think in the second act, he has the clear motivation of revenge.
Mm-hmm.
But as you laid out, it's difficult to know what he wants in the first act.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this point where, like...
Yeah.
The villains are like, well, we duped you, but we won, and we don't care about you now.
Yeah.
This is all about something else. You're not really involved in it. We don't want to kill you.
Yeah.
But then one of them does want to kill him.
And then Wolverine just walks away, which it feels like is all that he could really do in that point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they did win.
Yeah.
Like, he spends the whole second act in, like, a revenge rage over his dead wife, and then he finds out that his wife is alive and was a plant and lying to him.
Yeah.
Right.
But but he still, like, cares enough about her that he doesn't want revenge on her for that, so he's just like, all right, well, screw this, I'm out. But
And I will say, the thing about the first act, which is interesting to me, is there are interesting ways to make characters that have no true motivation, and this movie does not do that.
Yeah.
He's just like, I'm a boy who can scratch you. And that's it.
None of these movies really engage at all with, like, how it would feel to live forever.
Yes, exactly. I was going to say, it's so interesting, the idea of a character that, like, none of the physical stakes really matter.
Yeah.
But they don't ever play with that at all.
No, they just
Greek
keep
myths
putting
play
him...
with it more than that, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know, like, if he does enough to be a protagonist. I don't know that there's anybody else who could be a protagonist, but I don't, like, know that, like, what change does he undergo?
he kind of feels like Katniss to me a little bit in, like, the first part, where it's just like, she's like a protagonist, but, like, barely. You know, like, I feel like you really have to project a lot onto her. I feel like, and in many ways, he's a classic, like, Samuel Beckett protagonist. Nothing to do. He's living forever.
Yeah.
So he just fights in wars. Honestly, that is a pretty good, like, absurdist thing. But, again, they never play with any of that. So it's kind of disappointing. But yeah, like, the first third, he's just kind of like, oh yeah, I live forever. That's cool. Of course I'm going to join this special ops group that is hunting down whatever adamantium.
And then he just leaves at one point because his conscience gets in the way. Liev Schreiber says, you can't just walk away.
And then they proceed to let him just walk away.
He just walks away and nothing happens for like 15 years about it.
Right. And then I feel like it's also important to talk about the fact that the villain's plot in this
Please explain it to me.
Yeah.
From the best I can glean, is to, like, they are trying. Yeah, like, I really formulated it in my head a second ago, but now I'm trying to speak it into existence. I can't do it. But it's like they want to use Wolverine, so then they make him OP, and then they're like, all right, well, we're going to ruin your life now. And then he runs away. And they're like, okay, well, you just made that problem for yourself, dude. Like,
yeah, for real.
That sounds like a you problem, Weapon X. Like,
Yeah, they're already on to Weapon 11.
That's right.
Yeah. Who is OP Deadpool.
OP Deadpool.
Yeah, who has every mutant ability of every mutant ever in one.
Yeah, he can teleport, laser
wait a
eyes,
minute.
regeneration, swords.
What is their plan for him?
Use him to kill other mutants. I don't think it's ever textually stated, but Stryker talks about
Yeah.
we're gonna fight this, we're gonna end this war before we have to fight
I
it.
think it's either mutants or they just want to try to proof of concept to the US military that they can make super soldiers,
Okay.
which is kind of in line with Wolverine's origin stories in the comics as well.
Yeah,
I think
right.
he was kind
He's
of
supposed
involved
to be a
in
super
the
soldier, yeah.
I think.
I have the body count for this film.
Oh,
here.
please. God.
I'd love to hear it.
I think it's 23.
Only
Ish?
23?
How does
Are
that
you counting the
compare-
opening scene or the
I
scene
can't.
with the
I like so there's like so this comes with a big caveat. There's 23 like on screen after the opening credit sequence, which they're just
well,
dropping people left and right.
I'm talking about that place where they're invading the compound.
Yeah.
Are you counting that?
When they invade the compound, yeah. Or you think there's more?
I feel like there was like...
Because I counted like 5 guys who get hit by bullets by Bullet Man.
Well, so there's like the dudes in the window, and there's like 3 there.
Mm-hmm.
There's the guys, he shoots the dude in the turret, which then he shoots 3 more guys.
Yeah.
And then there's that part where he's like flipping over and shooting people, and there's like 5 guys that drop around him. Then there's the guy in the tank, so that's 12. And then there's the dudes that Deadpool deflects the bullets back at, which I'm going to say is probably honestly 7. So I'm thinking we're up to like 19 right now, dude.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
Yeah.
So
at the very least, I feel like I'm probably missing something, dude.
it's probably... So, like, then let's boost this estimate to about 35.
Which
probably.
is still remarkably low.
Remarkably low.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
But on the list of notable people who die, we have nice old man and nice old woman.
That's right.
Oh,
Who
yeah.
just get killed for no reason.
Yeah.
We have Agent Zero. We have Dominique Monaghan. We have Will.i.am.
That's right.
We have
R.I.P.
To a real
R.I.P.
one.
Ryan Reynolds. We have Deadpool. Get his head cut off.
But he technically didn't die.
He technically comes back to life, but I'd count that because
Are you counting...
I don't know.
I think he does die and then he comes back to life.
Dies and comes back to life.
Are you...
I'm not counting. I had counted, but I have to take off the counts. Star Fox, Silver Fox, because she doesn't actually die. I had counted her down.
But she died in the end, though.
Oh, she did die in the end. So I guess she only dies
so you,
once.
you put her on, took her off,
took
put her on again.
put her back on.
Are you counting Wolverine? Because he died technically
He
there for a
did
couple
die in the
seconds.
middle.
Oh, he does die.
He
Yeah.
lost the will to live.
Oh man!
It's a lot of people, but not.
Are you
Liev
counting the
Schreiber
guards
as-
that
Yeah,
Cyclops
that
obliterated
he
with his
fragged?
eyes?
Yeah, you got him good.
Okay, cool. So yeah, all right, that sounds right.
Yeah.
I don't know why I was able to give you such exact numbers of that initial
That was
scene
incredible.
opening, but like I don't know, some like that part where he like steered over with the 50 cal was like seared in my memory for some reason.
It's that early stuff, like having heard Gavin Hood's intentions for this movie. It's that early stuff, like the trip through the ages, the like being put on execution row for raping people in Vietnam, and then like going to Lagos and dealing with like
Nigerian diamond lords.
Yeah, they
I
were
think.
I think Blood Diamond.
yeah.
guys.
It's like that stuff where I can kind of see the influence of like a South African auteur who wants a gritty
Oh
movie.
yeah,
That's where it's
Interesting.
the clearest. It's like shocking to me.
is
reading this.
Is the director white?
He is
Okay, yeah.
that any movie, like any studio movie, ever gets made. That we ever get anything that's like a Thor Ragnarok, like something from a big studio that feels like it has personal touches.
Yeah.
When like so much of this movie feels like it was like made by a computer. I think like visually this movie is really consistent. Like it has the same bug nuts insane aesthetic.
You're also forgetting the 2 fathers in the beginning and the 2 other passengers in the helicopter with Agent Zero. So that's 4 more people.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
For our other regularly scheduled program, this film fails the Bechdel test.
Yes.
It does feature, we've made light of it. It does feature 2 speaking female characters. Actually, not just speaking. I think there are actually... No? Because isn't there a female scientist, too?
There is.
There's a female scientist, and Emma Frost has like 2 lines.
Oh, and Emma Frost. So there are 4 speaking female characters, but none of them are ever... Oh, no.
What?
Oh, no.
Does
Wait, does Silver Fox talks to Emma Frost, right?
They're sisters.
But there's a moment where they talk
speak to each other.
where they're getting out,
Let me think.
and they're not talking about men. They're talking about like cages or directions or something.
Dude, straight up, no, I don't think so.
I think she is. She's like, go the other way.
Dude, but is there
Yeah,
like
or-
a
but are she
response?
talking
I
about-
honestly think they hug, and then that's it. And then the next time we see them is Emma Frost blocking the bullets and then helping Cyclops aim.
Yeah.
I honestly don't think they speak.
I'm going to say a no to the Bechdel test, even though there may be a technicality there that I missed.
We're gonna say no on principle.
Yeah, no on principle.
Yeah,
Because-
this movie has so many more men than women, and the woman seems there mostly to be a Megan Fox look-alike and wear revealing clothing. So it's gonna be a no for me, Chief.
It's also just like there are no
Sorry,
like
Bechtel, you
when you're
failed.
talking about like there are women actors in this movie. There are no women characters in this film.
Yeah.
But there's barely any characters at all. Like, there's no one who I would be like, oh, that's like a compelling person who I know what they want and know
The
where
character
they're
with
going.
the most characterization in this movie is probably the Blob.
That's fair.
Yeah.
The Blob has a real arc.
He's the only one that has, like, he does stuff, and then you see, like, the actual consequences of that. His PTSD led him to overeating.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just like Wolverine is just...
Yeah. That's the thing, like, this movie is visually consistent, but tonally and tracking, like, what the characters are trying to do, it makes no sense.
So this brings us to, we kind of talked about this, your favorite character other than Wolverine are MVP OTW.
Mm-hmm.
Jay?
So, I'll go ahead and say it's obviously Will.i.am.
Okay.
I don't
I'm
remember...
so pissed you let them go first. This is the only character I liked.
What is his character's name? I don't even know.
I'll look it up while you talk about him.
I mean, he's just the most charming.
Uh-huh.
He has the best costume.
Uh-huh.
Best acting of the whole movie.
By
for sure.
far. He's playing John Wraith,
John Ray.
who is also whose superhero name is Kestrel in the comics. And honestly, this illustration looks a lot like the movie.
Wow,
That's
yeah.
pretty good.
They're pretty spot on.
Down to like the cool sunglasses.
And he has my favorite line in the movie,
Uh-huh.
which is when Gambit is flipping cards, he just goes, "That's cool." It's my favorite line in the movie, followed closely by when Gambit comes back at the end of the movie and says, he like blows up the falling concrete and says, "Did you miss me?" And then Logan just goes, "Jesus." The most realistically delivered line in the whole movie, because that's how we all feel. So my MVP is definitely him, followed closely by the Cool War montage at the beginning and Liev Schreiber's coat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Wade, your MVP OTW.
Well, Jay took Will.i.am, who, in my opinion, is the only person who gives a good performance in this movie.
Okay.
My second would be Aaron Jeffrey, who plays Thomas Logan, Wolverine's father, when he's a child.
Who's in this for 3 minutes?
I'm certain less than that, but I think this movie absolutely nails both the young versions and the fathers of Hugh Jackman and Liev Schreiber. They look exactly like what young versions and what the parents would look like.
Yeah.
In like truly a wild way. So props to the casting director for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, truly.
Emmett,
That's fair.
who's your MVP OTW of XOW?
Dude. You've taken the only two acceptable answers.
I mean, let's see.
It's not your favorite actor, Liev Schreiber, as
You know,
Liev Schreiber as Sabretooth?
Liev Schreiber as Liev Schreiber.
Liev Schreiber as Liev Schreiber's Sabretooth?
I'm gonna go if I can't go with Will.i.am as Kestrel, a name we never hear in this movie. I would have to say the person who is like doing the most for this movie, who I think is really delivering a sleeper like performance for the ages, honestly. Truly underappreciated in his time.
Clearly.
Known better to some by his work on the hit TV series Lost, would be young Dominic Monaghan,
honestly.
Okay.
as the guy who can turn on and off light bulbs.
Despite their best efforts, I mean, like, they tried really to hype up the tragic nature of Wolverine, but I think Dominic Monaghan's character is the most tragic in this movie.
I agree.
Because he has, like, the most peaceful power out of all of them.
Yeah.
And he's just trying to live a peaceful life doing, like, these silly little tricks.
He was forced into doing war crimes. Now he's trying to recover by being in a carnival.
Yeah, I mean, that's your life story, dude.
Do you think he has more screen time here or in The Rise of Skywalker?
He's in The Rise of Skywalker?
Dark magic? Clones, maybe?
How did I forget about that?
He has a very similar role as, like, small member of the team.
Yeah.
I'm going to say...
Yeah, wow, he was that in Lord of the Rings, too, huh?
He's a little bit of a bigger...
No, because he's a small
my God.
member of the
I also
team.
want to say Troye Sivan looks just like a hobbit at the start of this movie. He has the same haircut.
Oh, he
Yeah,
does.
dude.
He could be like
A similar cloak.
young Frodo.
Uh-huh.
I honestly do have to say Ryan Reynolds before his mouth was sewn shut was pretty good, I think, personally. Like, I thought he did fine for what was given to him. He's like, oh, wow, this is kind of some charismatic, energetic acting. Thank you.
He gets one or two good lines. I think that he clearly like really loves that character. He's
Exactly.
passionate about this character.
It's like nice to see some actual passion in this movie.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm not sure how he like signed off on this version happening. I feel like he was like, I've got 5 minutes to sell my version of this character, so
Yeah.
let me give it my all.
Maybe that's like, I'll do this for you if you give me a movie or something, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe he just didn't know what he's getting into.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember literally any other actors from this that were like good.
Yeah.
That old couple was kind of fun.
And the old guy in that, he's like got a couple
It's
funny
like,
lines.
here, cover it up. I want you to give my wife a heart attack. It's like, oh man.
Yeah, and Wolverine comes in with the kitchen sink. It's like very briefly a fish out of water comedy for like 5 minutes, and then it's
Oh god.
back to the old business.
It's Edward Scissorhands for approximately 30 seconds.
They had it down to a science. It's exactly what you said about being written by a computer. It's like
Yeah, it's like an algorithm.
Wait a minute.
what?
Oh, never mind. I'm sorry.
What?
No,
I'm
please.
sorry. I don't think this is true. Was the son's name Logan? Is that why he starts calling himself Logan?
The
son of the old couple who
I
takes him in?
Don't think so. But
No, I don't think so. I don't think they ever say his name.
That'd be so weird. But also, how would
But if it
Stryker
was-
know?
I didn't think so either.
If it was like, they surely would have framed it some way, and I would have remembered it because I have no memory of them saying his name at all.
No.
You're right. I'm sorry.
That would be a step too good for this movie.
They also, this is just reminding me, they like mention it's like when he gets on the bike and the bike goes,
Yeah.
they're like, wow, you're heavy. And then they never ever mention again that he has probably 500 pounds of metal coating his skeleton.
Yeah, they're not like, this helicopter is hard to get off the ground.
Wow, feels like we're carrying half a ton of adamantium. That's interesting. Weird.
Wow. Oh man. So, any last thoughts on X-Men Origins Wolverine?
Oh, and there's a classic line that I really loved when they're leaving the boxing ring to go find Gambit.
Okay.
Will.i.am, or what is this? What's he called?
Kestrel?
Kestrel. Yes, Kestrel is like, I'm coming with you, out of nowhere. And then he teleports next to him, and Logan goes, there's no redemption where I'm going. And then Kestrel goes, I wasn't looking for any. And I was just like, okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Awesome.
I was like, all right, cool, man. Kestrel knows where it's at.
Oh, and then they're on motorcycles together
That's
going
right.
across the bridge. And we're like, why doesn't he just teleport there?
Oh, God.
Yeah, Kestrel's such a real one for riding that motorcycle with him.
All
Not
the way to New
teleporting,
Orleans.
man. Yeah. My final thought on this movie is that it is the movie where the franchise entirely loses what it had been before, which was kind of like Bryan Singer's singular vision, auteur, small-scale, personal dynamic superhero team, which is what sets it apart from everything else. It entirely loses that in this movie and becomes kind of like generic action. But I think in some ways that may also free it up to become anything in the future.
Yeah.
I think what it's trying to be here totally fails. But like, I think in The Last Stand, we see them try and recreate Bryan Singer's thing without Bryan Singer, and that also completely fails.
Yeah.
So maybe we're just naturally going to have like one totally incoherent thing in the middle here, transitioning. I would stick by my previous statement that this is the only film in the franchise I recommend people watch. I think it is a flop, but I think you need to watch this.
It's an essential experience.
And understand what it's like. And I also think that it teaches the important lesson that you can't kiss your wife goodbye if you're a big old man. Not in front of the other boys. No, no.
And he throws the axe at his coworker, and then she goes, Jimmy. And he goes, ugh, smirking, and then he kisses her and gets on the truck with the men.
Gotta kiss your wife goodbye and then throw an axe.
The old ball and chain,
Yeah, just
baby.
to prove you're still a man. My God. The closing thought that I would close on with this is similar to Wade's, in that I would say you have to watch this movie because
yes.
it's like required 2009 watching. And the thought that I would leave you on is, would you really rather watch The Hangover Angels and Demons, Sherlock Holmes, Twilight New Moon, 2012, Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, Ice Age 4, Harry Potter 6, or Avatar again? No. You want to watch this movie. And yes, I did leave Up out of that because I think people do like that movie, and I don't want people to come at us for that.
Jay, is there anything you want to plug? Anywhere that people can find you while you're here?
Let's see. Anything I want to plug? Well, I'm on a podcast. We will hopefully be dropping soon. I don't know if we have an official title for it yet. I think it's just called Superheroes Social Club. Is what it's called. It's an improv comedy podcast based around like superheroes kind of stuff, and I do some improv on there. I also have a project dropping soon. Hopefully, I got a director in Maryland to pick up a screenplay I did. Oh, wow. So I don't want to
give us a little tease.
It's just a little short film. It's just a little classic like Quentin Tarantino inspired little hitman piece.
Okay.
But I think it's pretty goofy. He likes it a lot. So hopefully we'll be dropping it soon. And if you would like to know more about that in the future, you can follow me on Instagram at Rotlord or Twitter at Hydro Lizard.
Hail Hydro Lizard.
It's actually pronounced Hydrolizard, but it's a character on the podcast I did. But anyway, yeah, so that's all I got.
Cool.
You want to take us home?
All right.
Do you guys have an outro?
Yeah. All right. What's that? Oh, yes. With the next episode, we will be looking at X-Men First Class, which...
Is that really the next one that came out after this?
2011.
It might just save the series.
Wow.
Yeah,
We'll see.
right?
That is insane.
We will see. My last thought on this is that this is formally the moment when I would like to revoke my age-old assertion that the X-Men series is the superior Marvel cinematic series. It is officially debunked. There's nothing they can do to redeem it.
It's too late.
I fully want to finish this series, but I am ready to acknowledge that it is definitely the inferior one after seeing this hot pile of garbage.
Yeah, I mean, because what's the worst Marvel movie in the MCU?
Like Thor, Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, like something like that.
But even there, like, Iron Man 2 is way more just consistent.
Yeah. And I think X3 is even way less watchable than this. Like, I don't think any of those are.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that the one where they make the plastic bullets?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The Last Stand.
All right. And this has been our last stand.
Is that the one with Juggernaut too?
Yes.
I'm the Juggernaut. God, I'm not going to say the other word.
We talked about that last week.
That is also how we closed the last week's episode.
Hell yeah.
All right. Well, this has been Cinema Bums. You can at us at... Don't at us at all. All right, then. Well, thank you, and stay safe out there. It is still probably a pandemic. Cinema Bums is a production of DKG Podcast. It is created and produced by Wade Lawrence Holloman and me, Emmett Temple. Wade also edits and mixes this podcast. Our theme music is by Zane Holloman, who you can find on Bandcamp, and our show art is by Autumn Beckner. Our social media is managed by Laura Bennett. If you like what you hear, please tell all your friends and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, the 2 best ways to spread the word about our work. You can also follow us on Instagram at CinemaBums or email us at cinemabumspod@gmail.com. Don't flake on us. We'll be back next week.